So, Kevin, did you have any idea that you were then going to be a full-on pastor?
I had no idea at all.
When you enter into that serving leadership, you get addicted to it, don't you?
You do. Absolutely. 100%. When you start meeting people where they're at and you start equipping people to do what the Bible says, it's such a blessing.
So many people are hesitant to jump in because they feel unworthy to do it, and they don't realize Jesus is going to do all the work for them. One of the greatest obstacles to overcome in the church or even in the community is we want the homeless to look like we do. These people have been on the streets their whole life. Their parents were on the streets their whole life, and it's something that it's a mindset. And the only thing that's going to fix that is Jesus.
Yeah. Today, we are honored to welcome Pastors Kevin and Jennifer Hardcastle, the incredible leaders of the Current Outreach Church in Van Buren, Arkansas. I have known the Hardcastles nearly my entire life. My dad even built one of their homes years ago. They are deeply loved by the members of their church and so many more in the community. More than just pastors, they are bridge builders, uniting churches across the area with a shared heart for outreach and service. The Current is widely known for its hands-on ministry, particularly its outreach to the homeless. While many are willing to give financially, the Hardcastles take it a step further, investing their time, energy, and hearts into meeting people where they are. Their work is the true definition of community investment, not just in resources, but in relationships. Now, I'll be the first to say that Kevin and Jennifer are extremely humble. So being on this platform is probably not just a little, but a lot uncomfortable for them. But their story is one that deserves to be told, and I know it will inspire you. In this episode, we will hear about how the Current Church came to be, the heart behind their ministry, and the impact they're making every single day. Let's jump in. Welcome, you guys.
No, thank you.
Was that real? How, on a level of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable was that?
That was pretty 10.
You did a great job introducing us. That was so good. Thank you.
sweet.
Thank you.
Guys, I love you. I love you so much. You're like family. I feel like there's not a time in my life that the Hardcastles weren't in it. So you do feel like family to me. And I know that was uncomfortable, but I wanted to make sure and get every little detail of who you guys are. And that wasn't even close. But I want to talk about your story. And first of all, I want to thank you for being uncomfortable and allowing the Lord to use you today. Okay. I honestly thought Jennifer would say yes, and I thought Kevin would maybe say no.
Oh, can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Jen called me up. She said, "You never going to guess Erica called and asked us to be on her podcast." I said, "Wow." I said, that's really sweet of her. I said, "That's amazing." I said, "Did you tell her we'd pray about it in a few days?" She said, "No, I already heard from God on it. He said we're going to do it."
That's amazing. God talks to me really fast.
I said, okay.
It takes a while to get to heaven.
I love it.
It's downloaded in me pretty quick.
I'm so glad the Holy Spirit has that direct line to you, Jennifer.
I'm all ears.
I believe that. Jennifer has a hard time saying no, I feel like. You're just
definitely.
a sweetheart.
Yeah.
If you know Jennifer and Kevin, you know that's both of them are just the salt of the earth. I could go on and on. I want to talk about, I don't even know that I know this story, guys, but let's talk about the beginning of the Current. How did the Current happen?
Well, it's pretty interesting. There's so many side stories to the main story, so I'll try not to go down a rabbit trail, but we were attending a church. We were attending Butterfield Church in Van Buren at the time. And Pastor Ronnie Gilmore was the pastor. And I approached him one day about wanting to take a team on a missions trip to Los Angeles, California, to Skid Row. And I've been fortunate enough to get to go there and minister many times. 19 times I've been there over the years, ministering and preaching revivals there and different things. But Pastor Ronnie said, "I'll tell you what," he said, "if you'll do something here first," he said, "I'll get behind you." He said, "You can take a team to Skid Row." So just one thing led to another. We started trying to figure out, what we wanted to do here, what we could do here. And we put our heads together and we said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's have an outreach service under the Midland Bridge. Let's try to get the whole church involved, and let's get out and knock some doors around that area." There were several apartment complexes and government housing. And so we just went out and knocked doors and and set up full-blown sound system and a bunch of chairs under the bridge, and just
And it was in August, so it's probably
Wow.
103.
It was challenged. It was hot. We had so much help. I mean, so many great
Yes, the
people came
church
out
just-
and helped, and one thing led to the next. We had a really good service. We had a bunch of people get saved.
Wow.
Next thing you know, everyone's saying, "Hey, when are we going to do this again? When are we going to do this again?" And so we just decided to start. We thought, well, let's try it for about a month, for 30 days or so. So we kept having service every Friday night, and it just kept seemed like it was just getting better and better, and more people kept coming. And then before you know it, we were in this thing for 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
And people were saying, if you ask them where they went to church, they were saying, well, I go to the Current. I go to the Current.
Wow.
That's Current's my church.
It was awesome.
So, Kevin, did you have any idea that you were then going to be a full-on pastor?
I had no idea at all. I had no inkling whatsoever. I had actually preached one time before then. It was actually on Skid Row. And I was starting to feel a nudge and a pull that maybe I was called to preach. I was still exploring that pull that I was feeling.
Yeah.
Not sure whether I was just because I hadn't been saved very long. I hadn't even been born again very long, and so I didn't know really if I was being called into the ministry, being called to preach, or is just something that all Christians just felt automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to a couple of people I was close to and said, I'm wondering if I think I might be called to preach maybe. And one of them told me, he said, man, you don't want to do that. I said, you don't want to be a preacher.
It's the loneliest thing you'll ever do.
It's the loneliest thing you'll ever do. You won't have any close friends. It's hard on your it's hard on your family. Mm-hmm. I was speaking to someone who's had a family member that was a pastor, had a dad that was a pastor. Yeah. And so that always kind of stuck out in my mind. After that, I thought, man, I don't know if
I don't know about all this.
Yeah, I don't know about all this. So no, I didn't. No, I did not. And Pastor Gilmore, he told me, he said, something you need to work on. We need to get a schedule of different people who can speak. Well, it was funny because after I did it 3 or 4 times, I didn't want anybody else to do it.
He did.
Awesome.
He didn't.
That's awesome.
And I was awesome. Terrible. I was terrible. I mean,
I don't believe it.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm all that now because I know I'm not. But it was one of those things that I just was just raw. I didn't know. I just opened the Bible, I'd read something, and 2 or 3 scriptures the Lord put on my heart, and I'd try to tell them about them. And it was just So
it's so awesome to hear that because God is still doing that today. You look around and you see, and you think about it. How old were you then, Kevin?
I would have been 35.
35.
Then.
And you think about, I know growing up in Assemblies of God like I did, I kind of thought being called in the ministry happened in the youth group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's when it happened.
Oh, yeah.
And here you are, 35, and you're going, Lord, you're calling me to be a pastor. What about you, Jennifer? How long had y'all been married at that point?
We got married in 1993.
Okay.
And had a pretty tumultuous beginning. And Kevin got saved when he was 33. And the most awesome thing about that is at the age, right before he got saved, my girlfriend called and we were about to get a divorce. And we were just at the end of our ropes. Kevin had become a real bad alcoholic. And I had told my girlfriend, she said, okay, what do you want? Let's just pray extravagantly. What do you want? And I said, I want to be married to a preacher.
No, you did not.
I did. And so she's my very best friend today. And so we prayed that prayer. And I guess we prayed it at the beginning of May.
Things got worse for a while.
It wasn't overnight.
It wasn't overnight.
It wasn't overnight, but shortly it wasn't that long afterwards. And then he ended up getting saved, and I didn't remember what I had prayed. You know how when you pray, you speak something out, and you just have no idea. And the very first time he preached on Skid Row, they called me and they said, you're never going to believe this. Listen. And they put the phone on speakerphone, and I got to hear him preaching the gospel. And if you would have ever told me when I met Kevin Hardcastle that he would
Wow.
be a pastor one day, or I would be a pastor's wife. But it's just been a beautiful story, and we loved every minute of it.
It's been a beautiful
But the
ride.
early years, like a while ago when I said it was hellfire and brimstone at the beginning, it was, at the beginning, he was just really hardcore.
Yes.
And then one year he had a summer of love. We call it the summer of love.
The summer of love.
And he just got radically changed by Jesus' love. And ever since then, it's just been beautiful.
Isn't that cool too, how the Lord, and I remind myself of this often, because growing up as I did in the Assemblies of God, sometimes we think people need to change before they even enter into, knowing who Jesus is. And that's one of my favorite things about your ministry is and I've attended the current church, and I love every single time I go, I love it. It's just different. I don't know how to explain it except that it's different. It honestly feels like the name that you're just kind of swept into this current of the anointing of God. And this is kind of church speak, but that's what it feels like. It just feels like everybody is in this current, and it's pretty awesome. I love it. I love going. I love going. I want to talk about investing in the community now that we know a little bit, and I know that's just a little bit of your story, but what I've always noticed from the outside is that the current church really has a hands-on approach. And what's cool is I almost think every single person in your church is the same person. I mean, they just,
awesome. What a compliment.
They just do, they just go. And we used to have a saying when I was in the youth group growing up of just being the hands and feet of Jesus. And that's really how I view your church. And I guess that's your origin. It's always been like that. That's how you got started, was just doing and going. And that is a lot. And how long have y'all been now at the current church? How many years? How many years has it been?
2007.
So 2007.
Let me elaborate on that.
Yes, please do.
2007 is when we started.
Okay.
And we only had Friday night church.
Yes.
And we still do Friday nights during the summer. It's getting ready to kick off. But we did Friday nights for 11 years. And that's all we did.
Before we ever had a Sunday
Before you
morning.
had
Before we ever had our first Sunday morning, Wednesday night, anything, it was all just Friday night, and that was it.
Wow. And it seems like people, this is just my take, and you can maybe confirm or deny, but it just felt like almost y'all couldn't get enough, like the community couldn't get enough.
We couldn't get enough.
You know what I mean?
We still can't get enough.
And that's so awesome. And even though I view your church like that, I also see, you would think the current would be the most tired church. Like you guys would just be tired. And you just, from the outside, you just see so much energy. And isn't that cool that it feels like to me that when you enter into that serving leadership, you get addicted to it, don't you?
You do.
Yes.
You get addicted to that.
Absolutely. 100%. When you start meeting people where they're at and you start equipping people to do what the Bible says.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's such a blessing. You take the mindset when you first start, and I know it is. I know it's a blessing to who you're going to minister to. I know that, but so many times you're so much more blessed. The people doing it are always so blessed.
It's more life-changing for those people. And I love that you bring that out, because I've seen that in my own life, where you think from this place of pride, even, I'm really going to be a blessing. Yeah. To these people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the cool part is when you know the Lord and you do that small thing, or that, it's always more. Yeah. It's more of a gift to give than receive, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
God does some amazing things along the way in people's lives as they serve Him, and they break out of their comfort zone. One really quick story I'll say is, I have a man who me and him have became very close. But years ago, I asked him one day, I said, why don't you go out with us and do street ministry with us? At the time, I was going out at least once a week, and many times we'd go out and do bar ministry and other things. But we would always go we'd pray during the week and just see where God led us and try to go there. And I said, why don't you come and go with us? Well, he reluctantly said yes and went. And I didn't know it in the time, but there was some things that he had some addiction and some different things going on in his life. And that was really sort of what was holding him back from going. He didn't want to go, and he didn't feel worthy. He said, I didn't want to go because I felt like a hypocrite because I was going. But he ended up going. And he said, it was the very thing that helped me completely break free from these things that had been holding me for years, because I didn't want to be a hypocrite, he said. And he said it also helped me get in the Word like never before, because we'd go somewhere and minister to someone, and I would always try to get people involved. Hey, we're going to pray. Let's pray. We'd like to pray with you. Hey, I won't say the guy's name, but we'll call him Jim. Hey, Jim, come pray with this guy. Well, he wanted to know how to pray. He wanted to know how to answer the questions the guy has. So because of him getting into the ministry and loving people, it drew him closer to God, who is love, drew him closer to God, and made him to where he wanted to get closer to God so he could reach people better.
That's so good.
So it's just really a full circle thing. It's the way God designed it. It's kingdom. It's kingdom stuff.
That's right. And you don't have to be perfect to start in that.
You don't have to be perfect.
That's what's so cool.
If that's what qualified you, none of us would get to go, including me.
So many people are hesitant to jump in because of they feel unworthy to do it, and they don't realize Jesus is going to do all the work for them. I mean,
so good.
It's just they've got to be obedient, and you just step out of the boat and
say yes, say
yes over and over again.
That's so good. And people watching this, if you know me, you know that even in my business partner as well, in our company, we just truly don't separate, our life, our walk with Christ, and our business. And so the culture's kind of built, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way. It's just in a that's who we are way. I've learned I don't want to be without the Lord. So it's in everything, because I can't do it by myself. And so I want to get into why I asked you guys on this podcast to begin with, which is, it's funny. It's a funny story, because I was really praying about investment, and I just thought, Lord, my goal with this podcast and this series is to really give value so that people can look and say, okay, how can I invest? How can I invest in the community? And I have, the kids call it an ick, okay? I have a major ick with thinking about investment only in a monetary way, right? Because the older you get, the more that the investments in your life that matter the most really have nothing to do with money, truly. And so if I'm being authentic about how I see investment, it would definitely look a lot more like the Hardcastles, okay? And so it was so cool, because I'm sitting in there praying in my office, and I'm like, Lord, who do I need on this podcast? I want to give value. I want to show the community how to invest. I want to, I can't do it. I need some guests. I need some awesome guests. And it was so funny because Karen Beckner, hey Karen, we love you, Karen. She's one of our agents. And shout out, she's a top producing agent. She's incredible.
Okay, amazing.
She walked in, and so funny because she needs to be on here too. She was a teacher her whole life. She invests all the time. Okay, but she's kind of hearing me talk, and I'm sharing with someone about I need some people on the podcast for this series. And she's kind of quiet, and she said, hey, I'd like to submit someone for your consideration, And I was like, Karen, tell me who. She's like, my pastor, Kevin Hardcastle. I was like, well, they would be perfect, But I'm sitting there thinking, and she goes, no, Erica, I want to share a story with you. And I'm not going to steal the story, because if you want to share it, I want you to share it. And the reason that I would like for you to share it is because when she told me this story, by the end of it, it changed me, and the way that I even observe the world in the River Valley. Because I think sometimes, even what you said, Kevin, earlier, you said, I wanted to go to Skid Row. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to go, and I think your heart was probably like, this is this is where I need to go. And it's so awesome to me that even just how God called you in this story, we've got it right here. You don't have to go anywhere.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the story was that you were driving around. And do you know which one I'm talking about? Because I would love for you to share. She said that you were driving around the community checking on the homeless. And it was cool to me because she goes to your church. So she said, Kevin does this. He drives around and he checks on his friends that are homeless.
I know the story now.
Okay. So I want you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to share it. Let me just say I'm not going to use any names as I tell the story, just because I don't have permission. But this is a story that really an encounter that really changed my life and has changed hundreds of people's lives. And it's just this thing right here is just a God thing. It's all you can say. It's a God thing. We had a real hot day one day, and I just began to think about some of our homeless community that I knew a particular area where they stay a lot of times, where we pick them up on the bus and bring them to church. And I thought, well, I'm going to get some waters, and I'm going to go over and just visit everybody. And I do that from time to time. When a lot of times when I get really stressed, and I really start to sort of lose focus. One of my favorite things is just to go over there and see some of my friends over there and just check on them. And it's just, it's just something that I just like to do. And no one necessarily knows that I do it until now. Anyhow, that day I went over, I felt led to take some water over there, some cold water, because it's really hot. And I get over there and I'm handing out water. So I get all my waters handed out, and I'm just kind of visiting with some folks. And there was a little lady who had just gotten saved 3 weeks prior. And her name, her
name's Frances. We're going to give her honor.
I'll give her name. Her name's Frances. She's a little older lady, probably weighs 100 pounds, soaking wet. And she had got baptized actually 3 days prior to this story. And I seen Frances over there, and I spoke to her and told her how proud I was of her getting baptized and all that. But I walk on down the road a little bit, and I look, and I see a gentleman. I see a guy laying in the ditch. And he's laying there in the ditch, and I walked up to him, and he was in a pair of cut-off shorts with, I know it's horrible and it's nasty, but he went to the bathroom all over himself, and he had it all over him. And there was a stench, I'm around some stuff, and I mean, I hunt, I got deer, I do all the stuff, but I mean, it was just a horrible, horrible stench in the air that I could just barely really get I had to stay upwind. And I asked the gentleman, I said, hey, I don't believe I've ever seen you out here before. I told him my name, and I said, man, what's going on? He started crying. And he said, nobody will help me. And he said, I just had double knee replacement. And he said, I don't have anywhere to go. And he said, this is where I ended up. And of course, I could see the scars on his knees, and they
had locked up.
And they had locked up his knees, locked up with his knees bent. And so he's laying there, and he's crying, and I said, man, you're in bad shape. I said, man, I said, I'm going to try to help you, but just give me a minute here. Give me a minute. So I'm kind of looking around and trying to figure out what I'm going to do to help this guy. And right across the street, there was a church that was having a fundraiser that day, that evening, just so happens. And people were pulling in, and I mean, literally right across the street. And they were at a place that was that you can hold parties and functions. And they were there pulling up in their nice cars, BMWs and Cadillacs, and people were getting out dressed to the nines. And they were, and I went over and spoke to one of them. I seen someone I knew over there, and I said, what are you doing? What are y'all doing? They said, well, we're having a big fundraiser today, raise money for this church project that we're doing. And people started coming in and out of the building, and they were coming in and out, and they were looking at a lot of the homeless community and saying things, sort of snide remarks and poking fun, and it just broke my heart. It just absolutely broke my heart, and I still didn't know what to do with the gentleman, and so I went to my truck and I sat down in my truck, and I just began to cry.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
You take your time.
And I just said, Lord, I said, need your help here. I said, this isn't fair. I said, you got to do something. And I just felt like he spoke to me. He just said, no, you got to do something. He said, you got to do something. That's the reason you're over here.
Wow.
So I got back out of the truck and went back over to the gentleman, and I said, man, I'm going to get you up. And he said, you don't want to touch me. He said, I've got crap all over me. And I said, I know, but I said, I'm going to get you up. I'm going to help you. And so about that time, little Frances comes walking back down the street, and she says, she says, Pastor, can I help you? Can I help you do something? I said, Frances, yeah, you can. I said, I'm going to try to get this guy up, and I'm going to put him in the back of my truck. Well, there's a guy who hangs out over in that area a lot, and he stays drunk about all the time. And I seen him over there about 150 yards away, and I have a good rapport with him. Me and him just kind of we just click. And I walked over to him and I said, I need you to do me a huge favor. I said, nobody will help this guy. And I said, I need you to help me lift him and put him in the back of my truck with me. He said, okay. So he comes over and we get the guy up, and the guy's screaming in pain. He's hurting. He's hurting bad. And we get him and laid him in the back of my truck. And I said, man, I'm not sure what to do with you. I said, I don't know where to take you to get you cleaned up. I said, and it clicked on me. There was a car wash right down the road.
Only Kevin would think of a car
this.
wash.
That's why God calls rednecks sometimes. That's right.
That's right.
God knows we are useful. Okay, we are useful.
So I remember the car wash being right around the corner, and I said, Miss Frances, I said, won't you get in the truck with me? And I said, we're going to take him around here to the car wash, and we're going to clean him up. And she said, okay, Pastor, let's do it. So we did. We put him in the car, put him in the back of the truck, drove right over there to the car wash, and got out. I let my tailgate down, and I told him, I said, man, I'm not going to hurt you. I know the high pressure washer would really hurt you. I said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to spray you lightly.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the brush, the scrubber brush that you use. I said, I'm going to use that on you. And I said, we're going to get you cleaned up. So little Frances, she gets back there, and she starts helping him, and she starts just being real nice to him.
Like a mama.
So precious.
And,
like a mama.
And I just got the scrubber out, and I started just scrubbing him with the scrubber. She pulled his clothes off. She said, now listen, I'm not being trying to see you naked. I don't care. I've got, I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not, we're cleaning you up. And she stripped him down.
That's awesome.
And I just took the scrubber and scrubbed him, and I just told him, I said, man, we're going to help you. We're going to get you cleaned up. And so we scrubbed him down, got him cleaned up, and took the water after that and rinsed him off really good. got him rinsed. Of course, didn't do the high pressure, just let it drip and cleaned him up and got him cleaned up. And he cried and he cried and he cried and he thanked us and he thanked us and he thanked us. It was just such a beautiful thing. And I called a lady from church who I knew always had extra clothes for men and women. And it just so happened she was just right down the road.
Wow.
And she shows up before we're even completely done with clothes. And while she's there, she says, someone said this pawn shop over here the other day had a wheelchair. Let's go over and get him a wheelchair. So we got to get him a wheelchair. The guy was just so thankful.
Wow.
Francis, she said, I'll take care of him. I'll help him until we get him in somewhere off the street. And which she did. She did all that. And it was just an amazing story. It was just an amazing, just so humbling, such a humbling experience. And we got him taken care of, got him all cleaned up, got him a place to go, all that stuff. And I went back down on the street and I started talking to some of the other folks that I know. And, I said, I seen a lady, Carolyn, that I know really well. And I said, Carol, I said, I want to ask you this without you getting mad at me. Now, don't get mad at me. I said, but how long has it been since you've had a shower? She said, do I stink? And I said, no, I'm not asking for that reason. Yeah. Just go with it. How long has it been since you've had a shower? And she said, well, it's been about 10 days since I've had one. And so I just started asking different ones. I said, hey, how long has it been since you've had a shower? Well, it's been 3 or 4 days. Well, it's been 3 weeks. Well, the guy comes up to me and says, Pastor, we've got pride. We know we stink. And you guys come over here a lot and ask us to come to church. Well, we know we stink. And one of the reasons we don't come is because we know we stink and we don't want to come in there stinking and feeling, humiliated because we stink.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, that's what I was wondering. So I left, and on the way home, I just started thinking about it. And I just felt like the Lord was saying, you need to buy a shower. You need to buy some showers. You need to buy a portable shower trailer so these folks can have a shower. So I'm like, Lord, all right, I'll do this. I'll check this out. So I began to check and I began to look, and these showers are really, really high. They're, we're talking, they're between $40,000 and $50,000. And so I just began to pray. I said, well, Lord, if this is what you want, you're going to have to show up big. We got a lot going on. We got other things going on, but God, we're going to do this. So Sunday, I don't remember the scripture I preached out of, but the Lord really laid it on my heart strong to talk about ministry and talk about pouring into others and helping others. So I told the story and I talked about the shower, and I said, right now I want to give you guys an opportunity to give toward this at the end of the service. And people brought down, there was either $43,000 or $44,000.
Are you serious?
Laid upon the altar that morning.
That morning in one service.
Oh my goodness.
There was one guy that had just sold his boat.
Wow.
And he happened to have $7,000 or $8,000 cash in his truck, locked up in his glove box. He went out to his truck. Got into his
Isn't that awesome?
Wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah. Goes out to his truck and gets all the money he had that he'd made off that boat, brought it in and laid it on the altar to help buy that shower. Some gave $2, some gave $5, some gave $100, some gave thousands of dollars. And so we had the money that day to go and purchase that new shower. So we've got a shower that has, it's so cool. It's just, we've used the living full out of it. It has
that is so awesome.
Men's showers on one side, women's showers on the other side. And we've got an amazing team that mans these showers. And we have a ministry it's really built right around these showers. It's called John 9:7. We have about 8 different churches who are involved in this ministry that all their people work. We are able to clothe people. We give them T-shirts, underwear, socks, a new pair of pants every Saturday morning.
Cut their hair.
Karen was sharing this with me, and it just blew me away that I'd not heard of it yet. And I think that's probably my fault. But because y'all know I live in Natural Dam, and so... And you know who I'm married to, too. So this is for me today, is just hearing what you guys have done. It's been so inspiring to me, but it just makes me fired up to I want to go down there and help with the showers, But this part really got me was the fact that, and I would consider you guys, and I might have mentioned this, but you're bridge builders. You are not selfish with your ministry. I just imagine you guys going, come on, y'all,
Yeah.
Oh, you want help? Well, come on. Yeah. Jennifer, that's just Jennifer too. I mean, I know Jennifer. She's like, oh, you 100%. Are so gifted and talented. Every single person that Jennifer meets, she finds a gift. She's like, you know what? Does. I have a brother-in-law, and first time I love him. First time she met him, Erica, he's just gifted. The Lord has gifted him and called him. Yeah. But that's what's so cool is that you guys, growing up. And I'm going to be a little candid because that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I'll be a little candid. I think sometimes church worlds can be a little competitive.
Absolutely.
And it's silly. It really is. And I'm not calling out anybody because I grew up with some amazing pastors, and the one I have right now, they're not that way.
Right.
But it can very much be that way.
It can be that way.
It can be that way. What was the moment that you thought, which have you always been inclusive like that with other pastors, or is that something that God really laid on your heart? Hey, how did that come to be where other churches were helping?
Well, I feel like one of the biggest things that the Lord has really laid on Jennifer and I's heart is building the kingdom. And you can't build the kingdom with your own agenda.
I think we need to cut that one. That's a short for sure. You cannot build the kingdom with your own agenda.
You cannot build the kingdom.
That's good.
It's got to be God's.
God already has it.
It's got to be God's agenda.
That's good.
And we got to get on the same page with Him. And the churches have so focused on our disagreements for so long that it's put a wedge between a lot of churches and a lot of denominations and a lot of pastors.
Yeah.
And there's been hurts. People leave a church and they go somewhere else, and it makes you feel strange. And I'll just tell you, it's something that's a spirit that loves to get on pastors, loves to get on leaders. And as a pastor, I can tell you from experience, you have to fight that off constantly. You'll get free from it and be free from it for a while, and then all of a sudden you'll catch yourself. Well, they're doing this over here.
Yeah.
So we need to do this. Whoa, hold on a minute. Listen. No. Yeah. That's not why you do anything.
Yeah.
You don't do anything unless it's for the kingdom, and you don't do it unless God tells you to do it.
That's good.
Or shows you to do it. And so we just have to be real careful. And we have to be purposely have to try to do things together. And I believe God smiles on it every time that we do.
Yeah.
And
I think that it's very important to see the strengths. I think every church has a strength.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that every church has a lane that they really excel in. And the people, I believe that the reason there's so many churches is everybody has something they're drawn to depending on their walk with the Lord.
Absolutely.
And I think that the reason that you probably, when you see our church, you see people wanting to serve, they're drawn to our church to serve.
Because of that.
But I believe that there's different seasons in life where, you're called to different churches. Maybe it's for your children, for your youth, for, whatever you're going through. And that church is really good at that. And I think that we've sent people to other, we've been like, this church is really good at that. Yeah. If you're looking for that and we're not good at that, or in the community, when we're trying to do a community project, we know we're not good at everything.
I think everybody wants to believe they're those people that include. and are okay if you don't end up in their group. Right. Whether that be a church or a real estate company or anything, you want to think you're that person.
Yes.
But I'll tell a story on you guys that I remember. Cody and I, we've been through, like many people, we've been through some church stuff, Yeah. And I remember we visited your church, and Cody and I, we just didn't know where the Lord was calling us at the time. We had little kids, and man, we had, God had moved us. We knew we were supposed to move to a different place, but we didn't know where it was supposed to be. And I remember you guys welcoming us. And I remember we felt God moved us to, it wasn't the Current, but I remember getting a text from Jen. You might remember this or might not, but you just said, Erica, I love you. I want you to know I was so excited to see you there this morning. And whether you're here one time or you keep coming, I just want you to know I love you so much. And, I knew you meant that. Well, and there was never a moment, even a single moment of, I can't believe you didn't end up at the Current, or,
absolutely.
And so I would love to just encourage our community, like you said, Pastor Kevin, if that's something that you struggle with, is that territorial thing, where it's got to be this. We do have to constantly remember that this is God's kingdom, and we're all working towards the same. Yes. And the church should be felt in the community. Absolutely. We should be making this incredible impact. And let me ask you this: is it all the same denomination that help you with the? Everybody? It's all kinds of kinds.
No, it's every denomination you. That's think really cool. It's helping. It sure is. We have Free Will Baptist churches. Yeah. We have non-denominational churches. We have Baptist churches. Awesome. We have Catholic church that comes and helps. It's, all denominations that come. Wow. And it's just amazing.
And that's cool.
Yeah, it's Methodist.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's just so good. God's just so good. We have two ladies that drive all the way from Booneville. And then we have some people that drive all the way from Hackett. And I don't mean they show up every once in a while to help.
They're there.
I mean, they're there every Saturday. Wow. You can mark it down. They're going to be there. And,
that is amazing.
And they love the ministry. They love to minister and help. Mm-hmm. So good.
There's another little element I wanted to talk to you, Jennifer, about.
Uh-oh.
And that was, and you mentioned it, Pastor Kevin, earlier. You said, when you first said you wanted to be a pastor, that there was a gentleman that said, you don't want to be a pastor, and that his dad was a pastor. And this is something I hear pretty often, actually, growing up, is, that the pastor had a hard time investing in his family. So talking about the investment that matters the most is in your family. And one thing I've noticed about you guys with your kids, your girls, they're just incredible.
They're precious.
But was there ever a time that Jennifer, you're sharing your husband and they're sharing their dad, and it's an on-call situation? I know it is. One thing I've noticed from the outside about your family is you are all invested in the kingdom. You're all doing stuff. Was there any kind of pivotal moments that you want to share that maybe you had a struggle with that, or Holy Spirit just showed you? I mean, how did you handle that as the woman of the house, his investing and you investing, and why is it a family thing for y'all?
Well, I think early on, I tried to protect my girls a little bit, and I, would kind of every Friday night, I would ship them off to my mom's or my mother-in-law's house to have them watch them. And I remember them one day saying, why don't we get to go to the Current? And isn't that what you and Dad do? And it just shook me. I thought, oh my goodness. And so from then on, we just allowed them to be part of the ministry. They served right alongside of us. They, they got to experience all the craziness with us. And I love the stories that my girls have. One time, Caitlin called me, and Kevin had been down at the church.
Yes.
Caitlin will kill me for this. But she was down at the church one day, and Kevin, there was a gentleman that was on the streets, and he was with us quite a bit. My girls actually call him Uncle. And Caitlin had a cell phone, and she had just gotten her cell phone, and she goes, Mom, You are never going to believe this. Someone came by the church and was wanting counseling, and Dad told Uncle so-and-so that he needed to keep an eye on me, while he goes in and counsels someone. And she said, Mom, it's just me and him down here hanging out. And she said, is that okay? Like she was wanting to know if it's,
she's telling on me.
Is this okay? Is this permissible?
I love it.
And then another time, Brooklyn texted me, and Kevin was at Target with Brooklyn and walked out of Target, and there was someone sitting, outside of Target. And of course, Kevin started ministering to him. And before long, Kevin was like, do you need a ride somewhere? And they needed a ride to a local mission. And Kevin was like, well, hop in the car. Brooklyn, get in the back. And Brooklyn was texting me from the back seat saying, Mom, is this okay? And so
I love that.
They just eventually learned that it was okay. This is what we do. So I don't think that there was ever a struggle. It's neat to see your kids serve now and it be just a part of who they are and not something that's foreign to them or something that, it's just kind of in their DNA.
It speaks a lot, though, I think, to both of you. The fact that they still are very much a ministry in their own families, they still serve. And I just think that there's so much in me as a younger parent that I want to really emulate that. If you see kids that still want to be around their parents when they're married, that tells me a lot about the parents.
Yes.
And so I know that God has given you the platform that he has, because that is not a normal thing. I hope you know that, that you're in the ministry, that you all want to serve, that your kids still want very much to be around you. It just really speaks to your character. And I want to thank you for investing in the community, because it's impacted all of us, whether you realize that or not. You are walking it out. You are walking out the investment that God has called you to. I want to ask you, the most important thing I think here is, an invitation. Is there, as someone who goes to a church, I love my church and our church does give back so much. But is there a need that the current has? Is there an invitation that you would like to give? How can people get involved with what you guys have going on at the current? How can they get involved?
Well, there's several ways to get involved. They can go to our Facebook page, The Current Outreach Church, check out what we do. There's a lot of stuff we do that's on the Facebook page. Okay. Or they can show up to one of our services. Mm-hmm. And there's always someone out in the foyer that is set up out there to show them how to get involved.
Awesome.
And direct them to one of our growth track classes. Mm-hmm. Or just show up on a Saturday morning to John 9:7 and just say, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to help, and we'll put you to work. We'll find something for you to do. There's a lot going on down there on Saturday morning. We cook a huge breakfast for everyone that shows up. Of course, we have the clothes closet. We have a lot of people working in the clothes closet. We're giving haircuts there. We have a prayer room there. People are in the prayer room. Many people, we have people walking around encouraging, asking people if they want to go into the prayer room for prayer. There's just, I'm naming stuff and I'm going to forget something, but there's a lot to do down there. There's a lot of moving parts. Mm-hmm. And, just come and talk to us and come and see us. And we'd love to plug you in somewhere. We'll get you plugged in.
That's so awesome. I'm excited. Let me ask you this. From when you started, Pastor Kevin, and to now, how would you describe, the outreach, the homeless situation locally? Do you see improvements? Do you see things that still need improvement? What do you see now as you drive around? Are you seeing more people affected? Are you seeing less?
There's more.
Kind of give us a report on that.
Well, this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I'm going to tell you that Hope Campus is a amazing place. They do an amazing job. What they do is just incredible. They're there to help the homeless. Now, that's the great side of that. Now, the other side is when you have a place like that, which our community has been so great to have that, to bring that in here for that purpose, and it's needed. It's very needed. But when you take that on, what happens is people from other surrounding areas who are in a earshot view of hearing about Hope Campus. Hey, they've got a place. You're homeless. There's a place right over there at Fort Smith. You can go over there and you can get help. So, of course, it draws people from other locations in to a nice, newer, fresh place for them to go over and get help.
Yeah.
Well, they have their hands so full over there at Hope Campus. They run into a lot of things, and a lot of people come and they don't want to follow the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously you can't come into a place like that and just think you're going to run over everyone and fight with everyone, come in there drinking and doing stuff.
There's so much mental illness.
That makes
There's so much that goes along with that. The mental illness, all the things they do. I just commend them. They're just so amazing over there. But it brings more into the community. They get over there, and a lot of them won't go by the rules or don't want to abide by what they're doing, and so they fall out. So then they end up here on the street.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were willing to share that. As controversial as it may be, it's important that we know, because I think some of the reason that people don't get involved is because you really do have to be educated on how to be involved, and what I love about your church and what you've done is people can go and, like you said, you equip people to do that. And so I know for so many people, they have a heart for the homeless. They have a heart to help people.
Yes.
But so many of us don't know, are we helping? And so I love the fact that we have these places like the current Hope Campus, and you can reach out to you guys, to the people at Hope Campus, and really find out, how do I actually make a positive impact?
Yes.
How do I do it correctly?
Yes.
Can I be equipped? And I loved what you said about your kids. I know for me, it's so good to not shield your kids from these realities, but to make sure and educate them.
Yes.
And, so I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It is, so many people that one of the greatest obstacles to overcome in the church or even in the community is we want the homeless to look like we do. We think that's the measure of success for a homeless person, to be able to, have a home, to have and it's difficult when you're fighting generational things, that when you're, some of these people have been on the streets their whole life. Their parents were on the streets their whole life. And it's something that, it's a mindset. And the only thing that's going to fix that is Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only thing that's really going to make an impact. And so,
He's answered all of it. That's the thing about John 9:7 is our ultimate goal there at John 9:7 is to introduce them to Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, once they're introduced to Jesus, he takes care of the rest. There's also there's several faith-based rehabs that come from time to time and set up there at John 9:7.
Oh, that's awesome.
And what we try to do is after we've established relationships with a lot of them. I mean, they're like family to us. They are family. We're family. And one particular story that I could tell real quick is one of the most jacked up persons that I ever seen shows up at John 9:7, and he is chasing cars down the road.
Oh wow!
He's running,
good looking guy, good looking,
running around. I mean, I won't go into it, but it was just unbelievable how crazy he was. And Hope Campus ended up taking this guy in, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't have permission to say his name, but all it was is he had gotten off his medication. He had became homeless. He'd gotten off his medication, and because he'd gotten off his medication, it just put him into a frenzy where he was just crazy. They took him in, got him in the program. He went through the program, then get him back on his medication. And I'm not going to say where he works. He has an amazing job. He's a very good looking man.
Yeah.
The girls all think, man, he's so good looking. He's such a cute guy and all this, and has such a wonderful personality. So there's just so many things involved in homelessness, and people look at someone who's homeless and they all have such incredible stories, and most of them sad stories, and some of them are just off their medication, and some of them need to be on some medication.
So you have to you have to get to take time to listen,
and
to hear the story before you judge, because all of us are guilty of seeing a panhandler and thinking, is he lying to us? Is he just lazy? Does he not want to work? He could get a job, and but sometimes there's such a deeper story there, and there's you just don't realize what some people have went through until you take the time to invest in their lives and figure out what's going on. Some of them are lazy, but not all of them are.
That's right.
And
the biggest investment here is your time.
That's it.
Just taking the time. And, I think one of the biggest tactics of the enemy is just to keep you busy.
It is.
To where you don't have the time. And, we see big companies. We see people who run these businesses that are very successful. And, it just takes some time. And I've been trying I heard this from someone, just leaving margin in my life. Giving the Lord some margin, because if we don't give him the time, he can't call us to what we need to do with it, so.
That's so true.
It's important.
And, touching on something you've mentioned several times is give that time to your family, to give that time.
Yeah.
I stress this, Jennifer stresses this, and Jennifer, she's had to, over the years when my kids were young, Jennifer had to constantly remind me of this, but ministry starts at home.
That's right.
And you can win the whole world, but if your family
that's good
ends up lost and ends up, somewhere off and doesn't want to be around you anymore, none of it's worth it. It's not worth anything. So we're just so blessed. I mean, we're so blessed to have kids that I just can't say enough about my children.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are my everything. And my grandkids, our grandkids are just incredible. Yeah. But you got to invest that time with your kids. You got to invest that time.
That's good. Because the world's watching. And how would they believe us if and my pastor preached this Sunday. He said, what makes it believable? Our walk with the Lord. What makes it believable? And I thought about that, and I thought, And when you said that, it's your family. It's your family. We're not going to be perfect in it. But if we're not even trying.
Yeah. I've made so many mistakes with my family, and, and you live and you learn. And, but, the main thing is you just got to keep balance. Got to keep God first.
Yes.
Then family.
Yep.
Then church.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
And keep it authentic. I think that's one thing that's missing is the authenticity.
I love that you said that, because Jennifer, if there's anybody that walks that out, is you guys. You are authentic. Not one time have I ever heard anyone say Jen and Kevin are fake. Okay, nobody believes that. Well, you are authentic.
I really believe we're living in a time where people are looking for the genuine.
They know.
They're looking for the real. And
I think if more of the church world would live in an authentic place, oh my goodness, can you imagine what the world would look like? I mean,
absolutely.
That's one reason that people, are so, I think the younger generation is really looking to the church like, are you effective?
Yeah.
And I don't think we're effective in a lot of ways because we've lost our authenticity.
That's good.
I think the transparency, take off your church mask, let people know what real living looks like when you make mistakes, but you're able to get back up and, long
so good.
All. I think
that's so true.
We've got problems just like everyone else. We struggle with things just like everyone else.
Yeah.
I got my stuff just like everyone else that I battle every day.
Yeah.
And, people love to hear that they're not the only one that's struggling with something.
That's the truth. Yep.
You know,
It's a lot more effective than even
I
a
agree with
sermon
that.
on Sunday morning.
Uh-huh.
Just watching someone, in the workplace, and just kudos to Heritage. When you walk in, just like you said, y'all allow Jesus into your workplace,
Thank you.
and you can feel it. You can feel it in the people that work with you, and you walk in and you feel the authenticity of your organization, and
that's where all the success comes from.
Thank you so much. That's all God. I mean, we know, y'all know.
We know
it's all God.
God gets the glory for all
He
that. We're
gets all.
nothing without
That's right.
God.
Nothing. Well, let me ask y'all this while we wrap up, because I know y'all are busy. You got man church tonight.
Man church tonight.
Oh, you got
I'm preaching tonight. Looking forward to
man church.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up? Is there anything in preparation for this, or any last, and you don't have to, but if there's anything else you want to say, I want to give you the freedom to do so.
You have anything you want to say?
You want to say it first? You want to have the last word or the first word?
You say something. You go. You do it, girl.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to even speak on behalf of especially investment. When you first called me, I thought investment.
You're like,
you always think of financial, and I thought, oh goodness. But I feel like Jesus has invested in us, and trusted us with doing something in the kingdom, and I'm so thankful for that. And during this preparation time, just oh my goodness, when you think about all the stories over all the years, and just how he's allowed us to be a small part of the investment into people's lives, but how much more. That's what all I realized is how much more they have invested in us. Like every step of the way, the people that believed in us, the people that poured into us financially, prayerfully, all those things. Like that's what it's all about. It's so not our church. It's so not us. Because we're nothing without Jesus. And so that's what I was reflective on, is just the investment of the community and Jesus in our lives.
That's so good. That's real good.
Oh, you want to have the last word?
I'll have the last word. And I just want everybody to know that Jesus loves them. And it doesn't matter what they've done, how many times they've done it.
Yeah.
Jesus loves them. It doesn't matter what side of the tracks they come from. They may have all the money.
Yeah.
In 2 states.
Yeah.
They may not have 2 nickels to rub together. It doesn't matter. Jesus loves you. Jesus cares about you. There's nothing that he cannot do. There's nobody he cannot save. There's nobody he can't change. There's nobody he can't touch.
It's good.
It's all about Jesus.
And that's the good news, y'all.
That's the good news.
How awesome that we got to share good news together today.
Privilege. We're privileged.
I know. Thank you.
That's
so
awesome.
much.
Hey, thank you, friends, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. I really don't want to let them go, to be honest with you, but they've got lots to do. So if you forget and you need to know how to find their church or how to get involved, reach out to us. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. The Current Church. Pastor Kevin, I'm going to call you Sister Jennifer. Hardcastle. We love you guys. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. We love you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.